Elias woke with a sense of calm that surprised him. The glow of the Valari city seeped through his chamber walls, soft and gentle, reflecting off the crystalline surfaces of the room. His body ached from the trial inside the Nexus, but his mind was clearer than it had ever been. Something inside him had shifted, an understanding that went beyond knowledge, beyond skill. He had tapped into something older and deeper, something that connected him not only to the Valari but to the life energy that flowed through their world. Serenia was waiting for him in the courtyard. She moved with her usual grace, but there was a warmth in her expression that had not been there before. "Good morning, Elias," she said softly. "You rest well?" "Yes," he replied, brushing a hand through his hair. "I feel different. I understand a little more now." "That is good," she said. "But understanding is only the beginning. There is more for you to see and more for you to do. The Nexus will require your guidance for the next stages. You must be ready." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He knew now that the work was far from over. Awakening the Nexus had been the first step. Maintaining its balance, ensuring it continued to respond and grow, was the next. It was a task that demanded focus, creativity, and perseverance, the very qualities humans were known for. They traveled back to the canyon in silence, the air alive with the soft hum of energy. Elias noticed that the city itself seemed to react to their passage. The crystalline towers shimmered more brightly, and the floating gardens shifted slightly as though acknowledging his presence. He realized that the world was learning to recognize him as someone integral, not just a visitor. As they approached the Nexus, Elias felt a subtle tension in the air. The Valari gathered nearby, their expressions serious. He noticed that some of them watched him with a mixture of hope and caution, as though they were not only observing him but relying on him in ways he could not yet comprehend. The tall Valari from before stepped forward, their gaze steady and assessing. "The Nexus has responded," the elder said, "but it is not fully stable. There are still echoes of weakness in its core. You must guide it further." Elias took a deep breath. "What do I do?" "You must enter again," Serenia said. "This time you will face the tests the Nexus will present. It will challenge your mind, your heart, and your spirit. It will show you visions, illusions, and choices. You must respond with clarity, courage, and human insight." He nodded, feeling both apprehensive and determined. The Nexus was alive, and now it sought not only connection but understanding. Elias stepped forward, feeling the energy pulse through him as he entered. Inside, the chamber seemed larger than before, stretching in impossible directions. Ribbons of light flowed around him, forming shapes that shifted between beauty and something more challenging, almost threatening. The first vision appeared quickly, a city, bright and thriving, suddenly falling into shadow. Elias felt the panic of the inhabitants, their fear and desperation. He recognized the echo of the Valari civilization's past struggles, the fragility of life when knowledge and care falter. He felt the weight of responsibility press on him, but he reminded himself that fear could not guide him. Only action could. He reached out to the flowing light, guiding it with careful movements, focusing on restoring balance to the scene. The shadows receded, the city regained its brilliance, and the echoes of fear softened into relief. The Nexus responded subtly, pulsing with approval. The second vision was harder. It showed Elias standing alone on a barren landscape, confronted by towering forms of darkness that represented failure, doubt, and exhaustion. The forms whispered, taunting him, reminding him of human limitations. His heart raced, but he steadied himself. He realized that the Nexus did not want him to succeed through strength alone. It wanted him to demonstrate adaptability, to use his imagination to find solutions that the Valari themselves could not conceive. He imagined bridges forming across the darkness, streams of light connecting the fragmented landscape. Step by step, he moved through the illusions using creativity, foresight, and courage. With each success, the energy around him brightened, and he felt the Nexus responding more fully. Hours passed, though time felt strange in the chamber. Elias faced countless tests, illusions that challenged his moral choices, visions that stirred deep emotion, and puzzles that required insight and ingenuity. Through them all, he relied on what made him human. Not perfection, but curiosity, resilience, and the ability to think beyond the obvious. Each challenge brought the Nexus closer to stability, each response strengthening the connection between him and the living structure. At one point, He entered a chamber filled with mirrors of light. Each mirror reflected not just his image but his thoughts, fears, and potential. Some showed him failing, alone and overwhelmed. Others showed him succeeding, helping the Valari, guiding the Nexus, and forging bonds that spanned worlds. He realized that the mirrors represented choice, not destiny. He could allow fear to control him, or he could act with courage and clarity. He took a deep breath and focused on the vision of success, not for himself, but for the people he had come to understand and respect. The mirrors shifted, their images blending into one coherent light that pulsed with energy and spread through the Nexus. Elias felt the structure resonate with him, acknowledging not just his presence but his understanding. Emerging from the mirrors, he found himself in a central chamber filled with threads of light connecting every part of the Nexus. He reached out, placing his hands on the energy streams. The pulsing intensified, and he felt the life of the planet, the pulse of the Valari cities and the flow of their forests all converging through him. He realized that he was no longer simply a visitor. He had become a part of the living system, a bridge between human insight and Valari wisdom. Serenia appeared beside him, her gaze filled with admiration and relief. "You are doing it," she said. "You are guiding the Nexus. It is responding to you as we could not. You have brought balance where we could not." Elias felt a quiet pride. "I'm just doing what I can," he said. "I never imagined humans could make this much difference." "That is the power of humanity," Serenia said. "We are advanced, but we have lost something over generations. You remind us of what we have forgotten. Adaptability, creativity, and the courage to act when logic alone cannot guide us. The Nexus needed not just a mind, but a spirit that could think beyond its own understanding." The chamber pulsed gently, the threads of light weaving together, forming a lattice of energy that stabilized the structure. Elias realized that the Nexus was alive in a way that no machine, no algorithm, and no ritual could replicate. It required understanding, insight, and the courage to take risks. Humans, with all their imperfection and unpredictability, provided exactly that. Hours turned into a full cycle of the Valari day, but Elias did not tire in the same way. He felt a deep connection to the Nexus, to the planet, and to the people he had come to care for. He understood now why Serenia had invited him. It was not simply friendship or curiosity. It was a recognition of human potential, a call for the qualities that only humans could provide in the right circumstances. By the end of the day, the Nexus shone with a steady brilliance, its energy streams flowing smoothly and the surrounding Valari structures glowing with renewed life. Elias stepped back, exhausted but exhilarated, as the elder Valari approached. "You have done what we could not," the elder said. "You have restored balance and reminded us of what is possible. Your presence here is a gift, and your guidance has ensured the survival of our civilization." Elias looked at Serenia, who nodded quietly. "You see now why I brought you," she said. "Not as a guest, but as someone who could change the course of our world. Humanity is more than we imagined. You have proven it." That night, as he lay in his chamber, Elias reflected on the events of the day. He had faced challenges that tested his mind, his spirit, and his creativity. He had discovered that humans were capable of more than even advanced civilization sometimes realized. He had become a part of something larger than himself, something alive, and he had seen firsthand the impact that one human could have when courage and insight were applied wisely. He closed his eyes, listening to the gentle hum of the city outside, and felt a quiet certainty. The Nexus was alive, the Valari civilization was saved for now, and humanity had left its mark in a way that mattered far beyond his own understanding. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new guidance, and new responsibilities, but for the first time Elias felt ready. He was human, and that was enough to shape the future of an entire world. The morning light filtered through the crystalline towers of the city, casting long beams across the streets. Elias awoke with a sense of quiet determination. The Nexus had responded to him, yet he knew his work was far from finished. The structure pulsed steadily now, but maintaining balance required constant awareness, understanding, and interaction. This was a responsibility he had never expected, yet one he now embraced with clarity and purpose. Serenia awaited him in the courtyard, her silver eyes reflecting the morning light. There was a calm intensity in her expression, one that had grown over the days of Elias's trial. Today we take the Nexus further, she said. It has responded to you, but there is more it can do. You will see what your presence can achieve beyond stabilization. The Nexus is alive and it wishes to grow. Elias nodded, feeling a surge of confidence tempered by respect for the task ahead. I understand. I'll do my best. They walked through the streets of the city together, the towers glowing faintly as they passed, the air humming softly with energy. Valerie citizens observed them with an almost reverent curiosity, their expressions showing hope, gratitude, and in some cases awe. Elias realized that the people had come to trust him, not just as a guest, but as someone integral to the survival and growth of their civilization. When they reached the canyon, the Nexus rose before him in its full brilliance. The energy streams reached out like veins connecting the towers, the surrounding landscape shimmering with life and vitality. Elias could feel the power of the structure pulsing beneath his feet. This time the Nexus seemed to recognize him even before he entered, the threads of light extending toward him as if welcoming his guidance. You must enter, Serenia said. This is not only about maintaining balance. The Nexus will ask more of you now. It will test your vision, your courage, and your ability to inspire life. Elias took a deep breath. He felt the warmth of the energy, the pulse of the living structure, and the weight of the task. As he stepped inside, the chamber expanded in impossible dimensions. Light flowed in ribbons, spiraling and twisting, forming patterns he could not fully comprehend. Shapes shifted between familiar and alien, representing life, history, memory, and potential. The first challenge appeared quickly. A vision of the planet itself spread before him, but the landscapes were fractured, parts of forests wilting, rivers stagnant, and cities dimming. The Nexus communicated the need for growth, for renewal, and for the expansion of life beyond what it could achieve alone. Elias understood that this was not just about repair, it was about evolution, about giving the Valari civilization a chance to thrive in ways even they had not imagined. He extended his hands toward the flowing light, guiding streams of energy into the fractured landscapes. As he did, the vision shifted. Forests regrew, rivers sparkled with vitality, and cities glowed with renewed life. Each success sent ripples through the Nexus, reinforcing the energy and pulsing in harmony with Elias's heartbeat. The second vision was more personal. Elias found himself in a chamber filled with reflections, each mirror showing not just his image but possibilities of what he could do, choices he could make, and challenges he might face. Some mirrors reflected failure, Elias overwhelmed, unable to guide the Nexus, the planet falling into decay. Others showed success, thriving ecosystems, harmonious energy, and a civilization growing beyond its previous limitations. He realized that the mirrors represented potential. The Nexus was asking him to choose, not in a moment of whim, but through understanding and human insight. Elias focused on the vision of success, not for personal glory, but for the well-being of the Valari, for the planet, and for the continuation of life itself. As he touched the mirrors, guiding his energy into the visions, the light around him intensified. Threads of energy connected, forming networks that extended through the structure and beyond, reaching into the surrounding landscapes. He felt the pulse of life itself, a rhythm that echoed through mountains, forests, rivers, and cities. The Nexus responded fully, amplifying his actions, extending its reach, and strengthening its connection to the world. Hours passed in the chamber, but Elias did not tire. Each challenge the Nexus presented demanded ingenuity, courage, and insight, and he gave all of himself. He was guided not by instruction alone, but by understanding the living energy around him, by sensing the needs of the planet and the civilization that depended on it. The test became more complex, choices that required moral reasoning, paths that demanded foresight, and visions that challenged his creativity. Yet through each, Elias relied on human qualities, perseverance, adaptability, and hope. At one point, a vision presented him with a stark challenge. He stood before a vast chasm, the energy of the Nexus fractured and unstable. Streams of light faltered, and he saw shadows creeping across the land, threatening to undo all that he had achieved. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but he closed his eyes and drew on the lessons he had learned. Humans thrived through problem-solving, through creativity, through the willingness to act even when the outcome was uncertain. Elias imagined bridges of energy forming across the chasm, threads of light connecting the fractured streams. weaving together the broken threads of the nexus. Step by step, he guided the energy, balancing intuition with careful thought, until the chasm was spanned and the streams pulsed in harmony. The nexus responded with a brilliance that filled the chamber, a resonance that vibrated through every part of him. He felt the life of the planet flowing through him, the heartbeat of the Valari civilization merging with his own. In that moment, Elias understood fully what it meant to be human in the context of a world unlike his own. Human insight, creativity, and courage could achieve what even centuries of advanced civilization might not. Serenia appeared beside him, her gaze filled with pride and awe. "You have done more than stabilize," she said. "You have guided the Nexus to grow, to expand, to thrive. You have given us life in ways we could not have imagined." Elias shook his head, still overwhelmed. "I'm just using what I know, what I am." "And that is why it worked," she said softly. "You reminded the Nexus that humanity's strength is not perfection, but the ability to adapt, to create, and to hope. That is something even we have forgotten. You have shown us that life can flourish again because humans can think beyond limitations, beyond fear." The chamber glowed brighter as Elias continued to guide the streams of energy, reinforcing his connection to the Nexus. He realized that the structure was not only a source of life, but a living teacher, challenging him to grow alongside it. The vision shifted, showing thriving cities, lush forests, and rivers sparkling under twin suns. The Valari citizens outside began to gather, sensing the transformation, their faces filled with wonder and joy. Hours later, Elias emerged from the Nexus, exhausted but exhilarated. The entire canyon shimmered with vitality, the streams of energy pulsing steadily, the surrounding cities glowing in harmony with the restored structure. The elder Valari approached him, their expression solemn yet filled with gratitude. "You have done what none of us could," the elder said. "You have awakened potential beyond our understanding. You have not only restored life but expanded it, reminding us of the strength we had lost. Your presence here has changed everything." Elias looked at Serenia, who nodded quietly. "You understand now why I brought you," she said. "Not as a guest, but as someone who could inspire life, restore hope, and guide the future. Humanity is capable of more than even we realized. You have proven it." As the sun began to set over the crystalline towers, Elias felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced challenges that tested his mind, his spirit, and his heart. He had learned that human qualities, curiosity, creativity, perseverance, and hope, were powerful forces that could shape worlds. He had become part of something larger, a living connection between human insight and an advanced civilization. That night, lying in his chamber, Elias reflected on all that had occurred. The Nexus was alive, thriving, and responsive. The Valari civilization had regained its strength and potential, and he understood for the first time the true power of being human, not in dominance, but in the ability to imagine, adapt, and act where others might hesitate. He thought of Earth, of the small achievements and great challenges of humanity, and realized that being human was not a limitation, it was a gift. In the right circumstances, with courage and insight, humans could make a difference in ways that mattered across worlds. As he drifted into sleep, the gentle hum of the city below seemed to sing in harmony with the Nexus. Elias knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to guide life and growth. But for the first time, he felt truly ready. He was human, and that was enough to shape the future of an entire world. The stars above the canyon twinkled, reflecting off the crystalline towers, and Elias allowed himself a small smile. He had come as a guest, uncertain of his place. He would leave one day, changed forever, and in his time on this alien world, he had proven that humanity's true power lay not in strength or technology alone, but in creativity, courage, and hope. And in that understanding, he found not only purpose but belonging. The Nexus had responded, the Valari had flourished, and humanity had shown that it was capable of greatness in the vast, mysterious universe. The storm outside the orbital station was endless. Orange clouds rolled across the horizon of Kira 9, heavy with lightning that cracked like a drumbeat in the sky. The relay station sat on the edge of a canyon, a lonely place built to catch fragments of signals from deep space. Most of the crew thought of it as a punishment posting, a forgotten corner of the frontier. But for Elias Noor, it was a treasure chest. Every faint transmission, every broken code, Every alien sound that slipped through the static gave him something new to study. Elias was a xenolinguist. He was not a soldier, not a trader, not even a daring explorer. He was a quiet man who loved languages, stories, and the way words could bridge distances that ships and weapons never could. He spent long nights at his console, headphones pressed to his ears, writing notes in his journal while storms raged outside. The others teased him, saying he would rather talk to ghosts than share a drink with living people. Perhaps they were right, but Elias felt something waiting in those signals, something important. That evening, he was alone in the lower deck. A piece of equipment had gone faulty again, and as usual, no one else volunteered to fix it. He strapped on his repair pack and guided the small crawler vehicle down into the canyon. The crawler rattled over uneven stone as wind howled through the cliffs. Elias tightened his jacket and focused on his task. He was used to solitude. It never frightened him. The air shimmered with static. The closer he came to the damaged relay dish, the more his sensors buzzed. He muttered to himself, making notes about frequencies. Then something unexpected appeared on his screen. A faint life sign reading, not from the station, not from his crawler, but from the canyon floor itself. At first he thought it was a sensor glitch. The canyon was empty for miles, but the signal was clear. Something alive was moving down there. Curious, Elias parked the crawler and climbed out. Dust swirled around his boots as he followed the tracker. The storm above sent flashes of lightning across the stone walls, painting everything in white light for a moment and then plunging it back into darkness. His steps slowed when he saw a shape slumped against a boulder. At first it looked like broken armor. Then it moved, weakly, and Elias realized it was a person. The figure was tall, larger than any human he had seen. The body was wrapped in heavy scarred armor marked with strange symbols carved deep into the plates. A long spear lay on the ground nearby, cracked at the shaft. The helmet was half broken, revealing a face with angular ridges and dark eyes that glowed faintly even in the dim light. It was a woman, or at least something close to a woman, though clearly not human. Her breath was ragged. When Elias stepped closer, she lifted her head with effort. Her voice came out low and rough, but the words carried across the storm as if she had forced them through every last piece of her strength. "You are the only one who understands me, human." Elias froze. His heart raced, not out of fear but out of shock. The alien language was unfamiliar, yet somehow, through tone and rhythm, he felt the meaning in his bones. He did not know how he understood her, only that he did. The woman collapsed again, her body trembling. Elias knelt beside her. His training told him not to interfere, to call security and wait. But something inside him refused. He reached out carefully, touched the broken edge of her armor, and spoke softly. "It's all right. I will help you." Her eyes opened a little wider at the sound of his voice, as if she recognized something in his calmness. Elias pulled a med injector from his pack and scanned her injuries. Multiple fractures, dehydration, and signs of exhaustion. She had been fighting or running for days. He set the injector to basic stabilizers and pressed it against her skin. Her breathing steadied a little, though her body still shook with pain. He glanced at the canyon walls. The storm masked most signals, but if she had enemies, they could arrive at any time. He had no idea who she was or why she had come here, but he knew she would not survive if he left her lying in the dust. With effort, he helped her onto her feet. She was heavy, her armor dragging down his shoulders, but she leaned on him with surprising restraint, careful not to crush him. Together, they staggered back toward the crawler. Inside the vehicle, Elias activated the emergency shielding to hide their heat signatures. The woman sat slumped in the corner, her hand resting protectively on the broken spear. She studied him with wary eyes. When Elias tried to speak, she answered with sounds he could not fully follow. Still, he began noting them down in his journal, repeating them softly, watching her reactions. Slowly, a rhythm formed. She pointed to herself and said a word. "Thassa." Elias repeated it clumsily at first, then clearer. She nodded faintly. He tapped his chest. "Elias." "Elias," she echoed, the strange shape of human syllables heavy on her tongue. Something passed between them then. Fragile but real, a bridge built on the simplest of names. The ride back to the station felt longer than usual. Elias could feel the weight of the choice he had made. Bringing her inside would raise questions. The crew might see her as a threat, an enemy. He did not even know what species she belonged to, but when he looked at her, at the scars on her armor, at the tired defiance in her eyes, he knew she had trusted him with that one sentence in the canyon. You are the only one who understands me, human. He could not betray that trust. As the crawler climbed the last slope, alarms blinked on his console. Long-range sensors had detected movement in the upper atmosphere. Several ships, small but fast, descending through the storm. Elias glanced at Thassa. Her hand tightened on the spear shaft and her gaze darkened. Whoever those ships belonged to, she already knew they were searching for her. The storm roared around them, and Elias pressed the crawler forward, determined to reach the station before the hunters closed in. Elias guided the crawler into the underground bay of the relay station, just as the storm outside grew wilder. Lightning cracked across the cliffs, making the whole station shake as if giants were striking the stone. He hurried to shut the bay doors before the storm could reveal their return. The last thing he wanted was for any passing ship to notice the energy signature of the crawler. Thassa sat silently in the back seat. Her armor was scratched and covered in dust, but her presence filled the space like fire. Even wounded, she looked dangerous. When Elias stopped the vehicle, she tried to rise on her own. Her legs trembled, but her pride refused to let her show weakness. Elias rushed to her side, letting her lean on him. She accepted his support only for a moment, then straightened as if reminding him she was still a warrior. The bay was empty. Most of the crew were on the upper levels, running communication checks. Elias used that chance to lead Thassa into the maintenance corridor. The shadows and humming pipes hid them as he guided her toward a quiet storage room. He locked the door behind them and activated a low shield to block sensors. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Thassa lowered herself to the floor, leaning against a crate. She touched her side where a crack in her armor revealed burned flesh. Elias fetched a medical kit from the wall. She stiffened as he approached, her hand tightening on her broken spear. He raised his hands, showing he meant no harm, then slowly knelt beside her. He cleaned the wound carefully, speaking in a calm voice even though he knew she might not understand. The sound of words, he believed, was as important as the meaning. It was a rhythm, a way of telling another being that they were not alone. As he worked, she studied him with unblinking eyes. At last she spoke a low word, almost a whisper. Elias repeated it back, unsure of the meaning. She frowned, then said it slower. He tried again. This time she nodded faintly. Bit by bit they began to exchange sounds. Elias pointed to her, repeating, "Thassa." She tapped her chest and repeated the same. Then he tapped his own chest. "Elias." She tried to shape his name again, the alien ridges of her throat struggling with the soft human syllables. "Elias." A small smile touched his lips. Progress. Hours passed. Elias fetched water and ration packs from storage. He offered one to her, showing it was safe by eating first. She tasted it carefully, then devoured the rest like someone who had not eaten in days. When she finished, she placed the wrapper neatly aside, as though even scraps were to be respected. Elias pulled his journal from his pack and began drawing simple symbols. He sketched a circle and pointed to the ceiling, then said, "Sun." Thassa tilted her head. She drew a sharper, jagged circle with points around it and said a word filled with rough consonants. He repeated it, clumsy but earnest. She corrected him with a short laugh, the first soft sound he had heard from her. Their lessons stretched into the night. Slowly, Elias built a list of words, names of things, emotions, movements. Thassa was patient but firm, correcting his mistakes with a warrior's discipline. He realized she was not just letting him teach, she was teaching him too. When fatigue finally pressed down on him, Elias slumped against the wall. Thassa remained upright, her eyes sharp, watching the door even as her body begged for rest. He realized she trusted him enough to share words, but not enough to lower her guard. Something heavy weighed on her mind. In the early hours, the silence of the station was broken by a distant alarm. Elias tensed. Thassa's head snapped toward the ceiling as if she could hear what the walls concealed. Elias pulled his console closer and checked the feeds. His blood chilled. 3 ships had entered low orbit. They were small but fast, and their scans were sweeping the surface. Thassa's jaw tightened. She muttered words Elias could not yet understand, but he felt the meaning. Hunters. They had come for her. He looked at her, then back at the console. His duty as a station worker was clear. He should report her presence. But when he imagined her being dragged away, wounded and alone, something inside him rebelled. She had chosen him in that canyon. She had said he was the only one who understood her. He could not betray that. Instead, he told her softly, I will keep you safe." She stared at him, not fully grasping his words, yet her eyes softened slightly. She touched her chest and said his name again, Elias, as though she was testing the weight of trust. The next day passed in tension. The hunters remained in orbit, scanning, searching. The rest of the station crew discussed defensive protocols, unaware of the secret hidden in the storage room below them. Elias visited Thassa whenever he could, continuing their lessons. Piece by piece he unlocked fragments of her story. Through gestures and broken words he understood that Thassa came from a clan locked in endless battle. She had once carried honor as a warrior, but something had changed. She spoke of betrayal, of a relic taken, of leaders who turned against her. The details were tangled, but one thing was clear. She was hunted not for what she had done, but for what she carried. One evening, she revealed a shard of metal hidden beneath her armor. Elias examined it. At first he thought it was just a piece of damaged equipment, but when he ran his scanner over it, the device flickered with old human code. His eyes widened. This was not alien. This was a fragment of ancient human technology, long lost and misunderstood by her people. Thassa's eyes searched his face, waiting for his reaction. He realized then why she had spoken that first sentence in the canyon. Somehow she had known this object connected to humanity. Somehow she had known that only a human could truly understand what it meant. Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. If the hunters discovered she carried human technology, they would accuse humanity of interference, perhaps even of theft. War could ignite over a misunderstanding, and yet if he stayed silent, she would be captured and silenced forever. The storm outside raged louder than ever, shaking the station. Elias looked at Thassa, then at the shard glowing faintly in his hand. He understood then that his role was no longer just about words. It was about choices, and he knew he had already chosen. He would help Thassa. He would protect her. He would find a way to uncover the truth before the hunters closed in. For the first time in years, Elias felt alive not just as a listener of voices, but as someone whose own voice might matter. The night deepened. Thassa leaned against the wall, her eyes half closed but still alert. Elias sat beside her, the shard between them glowing softly, like a secret fire waiting to burn its way into history. The hunters would not wait forever. Soon they would come. And when they did, Elias knew he and Thassa would have to stand together, whether the rest of the galaxy understood them or not. Elias worked quietly in the dim glow of the storage room, his fingers tracing lines of alien symbols in his journal. The room smelled faintly of metal and old oil, but it was safe. Outside, the storm hammered the canyon walls and lightning split the sky in jagged sheets. Each flash reflected off Thassa's scarred armor, making her seem even more alien, more dangerous, more real. Yet she sat there with her hands resting lightly on her knees, calm now that she trusted him even slightly. For hours, Elias tried to teach her words, simple, human words, and symbols. He drew circles and squares, pointing at himself and saying, Elias, then pointing at her and saying, Thassa. She repeated the sounds carefully, rolling her tongue around the unfamiliar syllables. Sometimes she laughed softly when he mispronounced her name, a sound like the echo of wind across stone. It was small, but it broke the tension. She began teaching him in return. Her words were harsh, jagged, shaped for a throat that could snap steel. Elias could not fully understand the meanings, but he could feel the tone, the rhythm, the intention behind each sound. There were warnings, questions, emotions, all packed into syllables that his ears barely caught. Slowly, Elias began to see the pattern, the logic of her language. It was a puzzle he could not resist. He copied every mark, every gesture, every sound, jotting them down, repeating them, hoping to reach a point where their understanding did not rely on chance or instinct. Thassa watched him, her dark eyes bright with suspicion and curiosity. For the first time she allowed herself to relax, knowing he would not betray her. Outside, the storm intensified. The bay doors rattled. The station's sensors buzzed with energy from the lightning strikes. Every so often, Elias paused to glance at the life readings in the canyon below. They had been alone for hours, but he knew the danger was far from gone. Whoever had hunted her this far would not give up easily. When night settled like a thick blanket over the station, Elias decided it was time to check her injuries again. Thassa hesitated, but he assured her with gentle words and careful movements. Her armor was dented and cracked, her flesh burned and bruised beneath. Elias cleaned her wounds, applied salves, and wrapped them carefully. She flinched once or twice, but did not pull away. In those moments, a quiet understanding grew between them. She began to answer his questions with gestures and sounds he could interpret. She spoke of her clan, of a betrayal that had left her running for her life, of a relic she carried that could spark war if it fell into the wrong hands. Elias did not understand every word, but he understood enough. Her life was fragile, her enemies relentless, and her burden heavy. Elias knew that harboring her was dangerous. The station's crew could not know. The other stations in orbit would not forgive human interference in alien affairs. Yet, as he watched her, he realized something profound. She had chosen him out of all humans to trust. Her first words in the canyon echoed in his mind. "You are the only one who understands me." Human. That alone was enough to make him act, enough to make him protect her at any cost. Days passed slowly, measured by lessons, observation, and the quiet hum of machinery. Elias grew more confident in understanding her language, more able to read her expressions, her pauses, her glances. He began to anticipate her needs before she spoke. When she was thirsty, he offered water without her asking. When she wavered in pain, he guided her gently to rest. Trust grew between them, silent and strong, formed in shared routines and mutual reliance. One afternoon, as the storm outside lessened to a distant rumble, Thassa produced a small, jagged piece of metal from beneath her armor. Elias studied it carefully. It was strange, unlike anything he had seen among her people. When he ran the scanner over it, the device flickered and responded, displaying faint lines of ancient human code. His breath caught. Thassa's eyes searched his face, anxious and wary. She did not speak, only waited. Elias realized that she had brought this relic not just for herself, but because somehow she had known that only a human could understand its significance. Somehow she had known that he could. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. This small piece of technology, misunderstood by her people as something sacred, could cause war if discovered. And yet, if he ignored it, she might be captured, tortured, or killed. He made a silent decision. He would help her, and he would keep the secret until he understood it fully. As he studied the shard, she relaxed slightly, though her eyes never left the doorway. She had fought and survived battles, yet now, in this quiet room, she waited for him to act. She trusted his judgment, though she did not yet fully understand it. That night, Elias brought out a small projector and began to run simulations, testing the relic's signals and functions. Thassa watched, fascinated. For hours they worked together, translating symbols and gestures into a shared understanding. When she touched the device, it reacted in faint pulses, a language of light and code that only Elias could interpret. Through the long hours, he began to see not just the technology, but the humanity it represented. It was old, forgotten, misinterpreted, yet it carried the essence of human ingenuity, of careful design and hope. Thassa's people had mistaken it for a weapon of divine power. In reality, it was a tool, simple and brilliant, and in Elias's hands it could be a bridge instead of a curse. The next day brought new tension. Sensors detected movement outside, faint but persistent. Small ships, fast and precise, scanning the canyon. Elias knew they were hunting Thassa. He warned her, pointing to the screens and using gestures she could understand. Her body tensed, but she nodded, acknowledging the threat. They spent the day preparing. Elias gathered materials, strengthening doors, rerouting power, and creating hiding places. Thassa moved silently, her hands steady as she inspected each corner. They worked together, their movements synchronized, a silent partnership built on necessity and trust. By evening, the hunters' ships had not yet arrived, but their presence was palpable. Thassa studied the stars, calculating, judging. Elias did not know the language of her gestures, but he understood the meaning. They were close, and soon the station would be their battlefield. When night fell, Elias and Thassa sat side by side in the quiet room, the relic glowing faintly between them. They did not speak much, for words were still new between them. Instead, they shared the silence, a silent pact that they would face whatever came together. Elias realized that he had changed. He was no longer just a watcher of signals, a quiet observer of distant languages. He was now a participant in something much larger, a human in the middle of alien conflicts, carrying the weight of trust and understanding. And for the first time he felt the thrill and danger of it, the responsibility and the hope. Thassa leaned back, her eyes half closed but alert. Elias reached over and placed his hand near hers, not touching, just showing presence. She turned her gaze toward him, and in that look was something simple yet profound. Recognition. Two beings from different worlds, finding a moment of connection in the storm of the galaxy. Outside, the storm continued, but inside, there was calm. For now they were safe. For now they had each other. And in that calm, Elias made a promise to himself and to her. Whatever came next, he would not let her face it alone. The night stretched on, and the station hummed with quiet energy. Thassa rested, her armor still scarred, her body weary. Elias watched over her, feeling the weight of human responsibility, of human care. In that moment, he understood something that went beyond words, beyond technology, beyond survival. Humanity was not just a species. It was a choice to act, to protect, to understand when no one else could. And Elias had chosen.